I'm Sophia Mitchell, and I'm 18. The man who raised me chucked a $50 bill in my face and told me to get out. He said he was done paying for another man's mistake. He'd waited 18 years for this moment. 18 years of the silent treatment, missed recitals, and insults whispered just loud enough for me to hear. He thought $50 and a slammed door was the end of my story. But he had no idea it was just the beginning. Before we get into it, do me a favor and hit like and subscribe, but only if you're really into this story. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I love hearing from you guys. Okay, let me take you back to how this whole thing started. To really get what happened on my 18th birthday, we have to go back 10 years to the first time I knew I wasn't like the other kids in my family. I was only 8 years old. It was the spring recital at Highlands Ranch Elementary. I'd practiced Für Elise for 3 months straight. My fingers knew every single note. My mom, Michelle, was right there in the front row, phone out recording everything. She had on her favorite blue dress, the one she only wore for special occasions. But the seat next to her was empty. Thomas had a last-minute meeting. At least that's what Mom told me when I asked where he was. But even at 8, I knew he never had last-minute meetings for Brandon's soccer games. Brandon was 4 back then, and Thomas went to every single one of his games, even the ones where my little brother just picked dandelions in the field. After the recital was over, I found my mom in the hall. Her eyes were all red, but she forced a smile and said I did great. "Why doesn't Daddy ever come to my stuff?" I asked. She didn't say anything. She just pulled me in for a hug way tighter than usual. I couldn't sleep that night. I snuck downstairs to get some water and heard voices from the kitchen. It was Thomas and Mom. They had no idea I was there. "I told you I can't keep pretending forever," Thomas said. "Every time I look at her, I just see your mistake. She's a child, Thomas. She's innocent." "She's not my kid," he shot back. "She never was. And the day she turns 18, she's out of this house." I didn't get what mistake meant back then. I had no idea why Thomas looked at me so different from how he looked at Brandon. But I understood one thing perfectly. Whatever was wrong with me, it was making my mom cry. I went back to my room, no water, and I started counting. Not the days until I could get out, but the days until I'd finally understand why I was never good enough for him. The way he treated Brandon and me differently wasn't just about feelings. It was about money, too. By the time I was 16, I had the receipts to prove it. It was September, my junior year. SAT registration was due, and I needed $200, $150 for the test itself, and another $50 for the prep books. I went to find Thomas in his home office. He was looking over spreadsheets for Sullivan Crawford Properties, the real estate firm where he's a VP. "I need money for the SATs, I said. I got straight to this point. I learned a long time ago, Thomas didn't do small talk. He didn't even look up from his computer. Get a job. The deadline is in 2 weeks. I don't have time to tiki. Brandon needs new soccer cleats." He cut me off. "The good ones cost $350. I can't just be throwing money around." $350 for cleats for a 14-year-old. He'd outgrow them in 6 months. But $200 for my college exam. To him, that was a waste of money. So I got a job at a coffee shop called Brood Awakening, just 3 blocks from my school. I was making minimum wage, 15 hours a week. It took me 3 whole months to save enough for the SAT and books. And I had to pay my own phone bill on top of that. Thomas had kicked me off the family plan when I turned 15. But Brandon, he got a new iPhone every single September, always the latest model, no questions asked. When I got my SAT scores back, 1480 out of 1696 percentile, I left the report right on the kitchen counter where they'd all see it. Nobody said a word. Not Thomas, not Jennifer, his new wife, not even Brandon. He probably didn't even understand what those numbers meant. My mom would have been proud, though. She'd been gone 4 years by then, taken by breast cancer when I was 12. But I like to think she was watching me somehow. I never asked Thomas for a dime after that. If I had deemed to build my future by myself, then fine, I would. But I also kept a list of every unfair thing, every little jab. I wrote down every single dollar that went to Brandon instead of me. I didn't know it then, but that list was going to be really important later on. My mother died on a Tuesday in November. She was 41 years old. I was 12. The cancer moved fast. It was only 14 months from the diagnosis to the end. I spent almost that whole year sitting by her bed in the hospital, reading her favorite books to her, while the machines just beeped and beeped. 3 days before she was gone, Mom asked the nurses to give us some time alone. She was so weak. Her voice was just a whisper, but her grip on my hand was really strong. "There's a letter," she said, "in my jewelry box, the one with the roses on it." I knew the box. It always sat on her dresser, full of stuff she never wore anymore. A pearl necklace from her own mother. A silver bracelet from when she graduated college. "Don't open it until you're 16, she said. "Promise me, Sophia." 16, why 16? "Because you'll be old enough to get it and strong enough to deal with it." I promised. I had no idea what I was promising, but I would have said yes to anything. She died 3 days later. I was holding her hand and Thomas was standing in the doorway checking his watch. Just 11 months after the funeral, Thomas married Jennifer. She was a real estate agent he'd met at some company party. She was blonde, looked perfect, and couldn't wait to play the part of Mrs. Sullivan. Jennifer's first move as my stepmom was to reorganize the whole house. Mom's clothes went to a donation bin. Her books got packed up for storage. Her jewelry box was about to get tossed in the attic, but I grabbed it first. "That's mine," I said, holding it tight to my chest. Jennifer looked at Thomas. He just shrugged. "Let her keep it. It's just junk." I hid the box in the back of my closet behind some old coats I couldn't fit into anymore. And I waited for 4 years. That's how long I kept my promise. I had no idea that one letter was about to change everything. On my 16th birthday, I opened the jewelry box. It was a Saturday morning. Jennifer had taken Brandon to a soccer tournament out in Colorado Springs. Thomas was at the golf course, Cherry Hills Country Club. That's where he spent most weekends pretending he was more important than he actually was. I sat on my bed with that rose-covered box on my lap. My hands were shaking when I lifted the lid. I found an envelope tucked under a string of pearls. My name was written on the front in my mom's handwriting. Sophia. The letter was 3 pages long, written on her nice stationery, dated August 15th, 2019, just 2 months before she got sick. I had to read it twice before it hit me. "My darling Sophia, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you're old enough for the truth. Thomas isn't your real father. Before I married him, I was seeing a man for a little while, Daniel Crawford. It ended when he got engaged to somebody else. I didn't even know I was pregnant until he was out of the picture. Thomas was chasing me then, and I made a choice I've regretted ever since. I married him and let him think you were his. He found out the truth when you were 3. He found a DNA test I'd hidden. He's known the real story for 15 years, Sophia. He just kept quiet because he was too embarrassed to admit his wife was with another man. I'm so sorry I never told you. I was just so afraid of losing you. But you deserve to know who you really are. Daniel never knew about you, and that wasn't fair to him either. I've had this letter notarized, and it's on file with my lawyer, Victoria Reynolds, at Reynolds and Associates. She knows to help you if you ever need it. You are not a mistake, Sophia. You're the best thing I ever did, and your real father deserves to know that you exist. All my love forever, Mom. I just sat there for a whole hour, reading that letter over and over. Everything suddenly made sense, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. That night, I typed Daniel Crawford Denver into Google. The results were insane. Daniel Crawford, the CEO and co-founder of Crawford Capital Partners, a private equity fund dealing in commercial real estate, and renewable energy. Assets under management, $2.3 billion. I just stared at that word, billion, with a B. There were pictures. A tall man with silver hair and sharp blue eyes, the same exact color as mine. He was wearing expensive suits, in most of the pictures standing at podiums or shaking hands with governors and mayors. But the one detail that made my heart stop was buried in a Denver Business Journal article from March 2022. Crawford Capital continues to own the commercial real estate market in Colorado, outbidding smaller companies on at least 7 major deals in the last 10 years. The article then named one of those smaller companies, Sullivan Crawford Properties. I almost laughed out loud. The company Thomas worked for had Crawford in its name because Daniel had co-founded it 20 years ago. They split up after a big fight, and Daniel went on to build an empire. Thomas was still just a vice president at the firm they started together. Thomas hated Daniel Crawford. I'd heard him complain about that arrogant bastard at dinner, blaming Daniel for every deal that went bad, every contract lost to someone with more money. And right then I finally knew why Thomas looked at me with such disgust. Every time he saw my face, he saw the man who had beaten him at absolutely everything. Business success. And apparently my mother's heart. So now the question was simple. Did Daniel Crawford even want to know I existed? I waited 6 months before I did anything. I had to be smart about it. Then in September of my senior year, I wrote a letter to Daniel Crawford, not an email, a real paper letter sent to his main office in downtown Denver. I put in a copy of Mom's letter and asked for just one thing, an independent DNA test to confirm everything. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I checked the mailbox every single day, my stomach twisting with both hope and fear. 18 days later, a letter came. It wasn't from Daniel, it was from his lawyer. It said Mr. Crawford was willing to do a DNA test at a place called Gann Trust Labs, a certified facility. An appointment was set for October 15th. The test took 5 minutes, a cheek swab, some paperwork. They promised the results would be here in 2 weeks. On November 8th, I got the report. Case number GT 2023-08A. Probability of paternity 99.97%. 3 days later, my phone rang. An unknown number with the Denver area code. The voice was deep and steady. This is Daniel Crawford. I just received the results. I couldn't speak. My throat closed up completely. I didn't know about you, he went on. Your mother never told me. But now that I know, I'm not going anywhere. I promise you that. I believed him. March 15th came cold and gray. The sky was heavy with clouds, like it couldn't make up its mind to rain or snow. I woke up at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes before my alarm. I just lay still for a minute, staring at the ceiling of the room I'd slept in for 18 years. The walls were bare now. I'd taken down all the posters and photos weeks ago. They were packed in boxes in the corner, ready to go. Today was the day. I could feel it in my bones. I showered and got dressed in jeans and a navy sweater and went downstairs. The kitchen smelled like coffee and toast. Jennifer was at the counter scrolling through her phone. Brandon sat at the table, shoveling cereal in his mouth while he watched something on his iPad. Neither of them looked up when I walked in. No happy birthday, no card, no cake. I hadn't expected any of it, but it still stung. Thomas sat at the head of the table reading the Denver Post. He didn't look at me either, but I noticed his jaw was clenched tight. His shoulders were stiff. He'd been waiting for this day for years. I poured myself a glass of orange juice and glanced out the window. There it was, a black Mercedes S-Class parked at the corner of our street. I could just see it through the bare branches of the oak tree in our front yard. Daniel was already here, waiting. The envelope in my jacket pocket felt heavier than it should. Inside were the DNA results and a copy of my mom's letter, and a picture of Daniel and me from 2 months ago at a coffee shop downtown. The first time we'd actually met. I took a deep breath. Whatever was about to happen, I was ready for it. Thomas folded his newspaper and looked at me for the first time all morning. "We need to talk," he said. Thomas reached into his wallet and pulled out a $50 bill. He didn't hand it to me. He threw it. The bill landed on the table in front of me, next to my untouched orange juice. "You're 18 now?" he said. "I'm done." I stared at the 50. Ulysses Grant's face looked back at me like he didn't care at all. "Excuse me," I said. "You heard me?" His voice was flat, like he'd practiced this. "I fulfilled my legal obligation. You're an adult. Get out." Jennifer set down her phone. "Thomas, maybe we shouldn't." He didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on mine, filled with 18 years of resentment. "I've known since you were 3. You're not my daughter. You never were. I only kept you around because your mother begged me, and because I didn't want people asking questions." Brandon finally looked up from his iPad. His jaw dropped. He totally forgot about his show. "But Michelle's gone now," Thomas went on, "and I'm not paying for another man's mistake anymore." Another man's mistake. The same words I'd heard when I was 8. I picked up the $50 bill slowly, on purpose. I didn't want him to see my hands shaking. "You think this is an insult?" he said. "It's more than you deserve." I almost cracked a smile. Almost. "I know," I said. "I've known for 2 years. The look on Thomas's face changed. First confusion, then suspicion. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. I put it on the table right in front of him. "Open it." He hesitated, then tore the envelope open. I watched his face while he read the DNA results, while he recognized Mom's handwriting on the letter. All the color drained from his face. "And my real father, said, is waiting outside." Thomas's head snapped toward the window. The black Mercedes, the driver's side door opening. A tall man with silver hair was stepping onto the sidewalk. Daniel Crawford. Thomas's face went gray. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." I watched Thomas stare at Daniel. The guy who'd made my life hell for 18 years, who made me feel worthless, unwanted, invisible. He was just frozen. He was gripping the DNA report so tight, the paper was crumpling. Daniel walked up our driveway with the easy confidence of a guy who knows he's already won. He had on a charcoal overcoat and leather gloves. His silver hair was perfectly in place even with the March wind blowing. "That's impossible," Thomas breathed out. "You and him, Michelle and—" He couldn't finish. "Before you," I said, "before she even knew you existed." Jennifer had gone ghost white. She kept looking from Thomas to the window, trying to figure out what was happening. Brandon had completely dropped his iPad, his usual teenage boredom replaced with wide-eyed shock. "You planned this." Thomas's voice cracked. "For 2 years," I said. "Ever since I found Mom's letter. Ever since I found out you knew the truth and punished me for it anyway." The doorbell rang. Nobody moved. It rang again. "I'll get it," I said. I walked to the front door. My heart was pounding, but my steps were steady. I could feel Thomas's eyes burning into my back. I could hear Jennifer whispering frantically, probably trying to figure out how this was going to affect her social status. I opened the door. Daniel Crawford was standing on the porch. His blue eyes, my eyes, met mine. "Ready?" he asked. I turned back to look at Thomas one last time. He was still standing there at the kitchen table, the $50 bill forgotten on the floor. "Goodbye, Thomas." Daniel didn't wait for an invitation. He walked right past me into the foyer, his presence filling the room in a way Thomas's never could. "Thomas," Daniel's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "It's been a while." Thomas finally got his feet under him. "Get out of my house. I'm here to pick up my daughter, the one you just threw out with a $50 bill." Daniel glanced at the crumpled money on the floor. "Real generous of you." "She's not your—" Thomas stopped himself. The DNA results were still in his hand. The proof was undeniable. 99.97%, Daniel said. Gene Trust Labs doesn't make mistakes. And neither did Michelle, apparently, when she decided not to tell me. Jennifer finally spoke. Thomas, who is this man? Daniel Crawford. Thomas spat the name out like poison. My old business partner. The one who's been sabotaging my deals for years. Sabotaging Austin? Daniel just raised an eyebrow. I think you mean outperforming. There's a big difference. I was just standing by the door watching it all go down. Part of me wanted to step in, but most of me knew this wasn't my fight. This was about Thomas finally getting what he deserved for being so cruel. You think you won? Thomas got right up in Daniel's face, his hands balled into fists. Taking her doesn't change a thing. She's still Michelle's mistake. Careful. Daniel's voice got real low, and all that nice guy stuff was gone. That's my daughter you're talking about. And I've spent the last 6 months finding out exactly how you've treated her. You could feel the tension in the room. I know you wouldn't give her the SAT money, Daniel went on. The phone plan you cut off the trust fund you've been dipping into. All of it. Thomas's face went pale. How? It doesn't matter how. What matters is that starting today you're going to pay for everything you did to Sophia. Daniel reached into his coat and pulled out a manila folder. Snorts. He slapped it down on the kitchen counter right in front of Jennifer. She flinched like it was a snake. Michelle left Sophia a trust fund, Daniel said. $180,000 to be managed by her legal guardian until she turned 18. He flipped the folder open. That guardian was you, Thomas. Thomas's jaw just clenched. I had every right to use that money. Raising a kid is expensive. Is it? Daniel pulled out a spreadsheet. It was bank statements all highlighted and with notes. According to this, you took out $47,000 over the last 5 years for child-rearing expenses. He looked over at me. Sophia, did Thomas pay for your SATs? No. Your phone bill? No. School supplies? Clothes, after-school stuff? I paid for all of it myself with money I made working at the coffee shop. Daniel turned back to Thomas. So where'd the $47,000 go? Dead silence. Jennifer's eyes shot to the spreadsheet. I saw her face change. It wasn't exactly guilt, more like she recognized it. She knew where the money went. Brandon's soccer camps, his private coach, all of Brandon's new gadgets. That's called embezzlement, Daniel said quietly. And under Colorado law, a trustee who misuses funds is on the hook for the money plus interest and legal fees. You can't prove that. I already have. Daniel tapped the folder. My lawyer, Victoria Reynolds, has been going over these records for months. The same Victoria Reynolds that your wife Michelle hired to look out for Sophia's interests before she died. Thomas looked like he was going to throw up. We'll talk about this more later, Daniel said, after the gala. But there's one more thing. Daniel pulled another paper out of the folder. It was a printed email with all the headers and timestamps. Thomas's face went from white to a sickly green. September 12th, 2018. Daniel read it out loud. From Thomas Sullivan Crawford to his personal lawyer. Subject inheritance issue. Confidential. He held the paper up for everyone to see. I need to know my options for cutting down the inheritance for a kid who isn't biologically mine. Specifically, can I cut her out of my will without having to say why? And what happens to her mom's trust fund if the kid is kicked out before she's 18? Jennifer gasped. Even Brandon looked freaked out. Where did you get that? Thomas's voice was just a whisper. Your company's IT department isn't as loyal as you think, Daniel said, especially when someone offers them a better deal. I had no idea about this email. Daniel told me he was digging up dirt, but I didn't know he'd gone this deep. You've been planning to cut me out since I was 12, I said. The words just came out, cold and hard. Before Mom even died? Thomas couldn't even look at me. The gala is in 1 week, Daniel said, sliding the papers back in the folder. I'd suggest you spend that time talking to your lawyer, because after Saturday night, everyone who's anyone in Denver will know exactly who you really are. He held out his hand to me. Sophia, let's go. I took one last look around the kitchen, at Jennifer's shocked face, Brandon's confusion, and Thomas just completely falling apart. Then I walked out that door with my father. My real father. And this story is just getting started, you guys. Thomas kicked me out thinking he'd won. He had no clue who my real dad was. And the best part, it's coming. In just 1 week, everyone Thomas has spent his whole life kissing up to is going to find out the truth about him. If you want to see what goes down at that gala, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. I should have known Thomas wouldn't go down without a fight. The week after my birthday, I moved into a guest apartment in Daniel's building downtown. A slick high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows looking out over the city. It was just temporary until I started college in the fall, but it felt like a whole other world compared to that house in Highlands Ranch. For the first couple of days, I just let myself breathe. I unpacked. I walked around the neighborhood. I even had dinner with Daniel 2 times. They were kind of awkward, but real conversations. We were trying to fill 18 years of silence. Then the attack started. On Tuesday, March 18th, I got a call from my high school principal. Thomas had called her saying I was emotionally unstable and making up stories about my family. He even suggested I might need a psych evaluation before I could graduate. Luckily, the principal knew me well enough not to buy it, but the call still shook me up. Then on Thursday, an email showed up from the University of Colorado Boulder's admissions office. The subject was clarification needed, dear Ms. Mitchell. We've gotten some information that points to problems with your financial aid application. Specifically, questions have come up about your family situation and who your legal guardian is. Please call our office to set up a meeting before we can finalize your enrollment. Deadline April 1st. I stared at that email for a good 10 minutes before I called Daniel. He's trying to ruin my future, I said. He can't get to me directly anymore, so he's going after everything I've worked for. Daniel was quiet for a second. Victoria Reynolds will handle the university. And the principal. Thomas is digging his own grave. He just doesn't know it yet. What do you mean the gala's on Saturday? He'll be there to get his award. And we'll be there too. I didn't get it yet, but I would. Thomas wasn't just going to lose. He was going to lose it all right in front of everyone he cared about. The 15th annual Denver Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala was the biggest party of the spring. Daniel told me all about it over dinner on Friday night, the night before the event. 400 guests, he said, slicing his steak. All the big shots, investors, city officials, basically anyone who was anyone in Denver's real estate world. And of course, Thomas. He's getting honored as Developer of the Year. Daniel's smile was tight. An award he's been pushing for since 2019. It's the one thing he's always wanted, his ticket into the city's inner circle. I just poked at my salad. So we're going to take that from him, no. Daniel put down his knife and fork. We're going to let him throw it all away himself. All we have to do is show up. The gala was at the Four Seasons Hotel downtown in the Grand Ballroom on the 2nd floor. It was a black tie thing. Champagne, a silent auction for a kids' reading program, and Daniel Crawford was the main sponsor. He donated $500,000. As the lead sponsor, I give the opening speech, Daniel explained. I get about 10 minutes on stage before they start the awards. What are you gonna say? He reached over the table and squeezed my hand. The truth. That's all. Just the truth. I thought about Thomas. He was probably at home right then practicing his acceptance speech, trying out his humble smile in the mirror. He was probably picturing the applause, the handshakes, the pictures of him in the Denver Business Journal. He had no idea what was about to hit him. What should I wear? I asked. Daniel smiled, a real one this time, warm and fatherly. I had something sent to your apartment this afternoon. Consider it a birthday gift. Saturday, March 22nd, 7:30 p.m. The navy blue gown fit like a glove. It was silk down to the floor with a simple neckline. Classy, not flashy. Daniel had picked it out perfectly. We showed up at the Four Seasons together, his hand steady on my elbow, as we walked through the fancy lobby. Huge crystal chandeliers made the marble floors glow. All these well-dressed couples were hanging out by the bar, their laughs echoing up to the high ceilings. I'd never been to a party like this. My life was coffee shops and high school halls, not ballrooms and champagne. But I kept my chin up, my shoulders back, using every bit of cool I'd learned over 18 years of surviving in Thomas's house. We walked into the ballroom at 7:42 p.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone. I wanted to remember every detail. The room was beautiful. Round tables with white cloths and centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus. There was a stage at the far end with a podium and a giant screen with the Chamber of Commerce logo. And right there by the bar was Thomas. He was wearing a tux that cost more than all my clothes put together. Jennifer stood beside him in a red dress, laughing at something one of the investors said. Thomas was holding a champagne glass, waving his hands around as he told some story about a deal. Then he saw me. The glass froze halfway to his lips. His eyes jumped from my face to Daniel's, then back to me. I watched the blood drain right out of his face. He quickly excused himself from his group and stormed toward us, looking like he could kill me. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I was invited," I said, nice and calm. "My father is the lead sponsor." At the word father, heads turned. People pulled out their phones. Someone started whispering. Thomas's jaw was clenched so tight, I thought he'd crack a tooth. He never was good at controlling his temper, especially after he'd had a few. "Your father?" He laughed, and it was a nasty, ugly sound. "Daniel Crawford isn't your father. He's a snake who's using you to get to me." The people around us weren't even pretending not to listen anymore. A circle was closing in, hungry for the drama. "Thomas?" Jennifer popped up at his elbow, her face all tight and worried. "Not here, please." He shoved her arm off. "No, everyone needs to know what's going on." He pointed at me, his finger shaking. He was so mad. "This girl is not my daughter. She's from my dead wife's affair. Some mistake I was forced to raise for 18 years. People gasped, started whispering. I saw at least 3 phones go up, cameras pointed right at us. "I put a roof over her head," Thomas yelled, his voice getting louder. "I fed her, I bought her clothes. And this is how she pays me back, by showing up here with him. I just stood there. I didn't have to say anything. Thomas was doing all the work for me. She's a liar and a user just like her mother was. Michelle had me fooled for years. And now her daughter's trying to pull the same stunt. Don't believe a single word she says." The whole ballroom went quiet. Even the band had stopped playing. I felt Daniel's hand on my shoulder. It was steady calm. "Are you done?" I asked Thomas. His face was bright red, now veins popping out on his forehead. "I'm just getting started. You think you can ruin me? You're nothing. You've always been nothing." I just looked at him. Really looked for what was probably the last time. "I don't need to ruin you, Thomas. You're doing a great job of that all by yourself." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Daniel walking up to the stage. It was time. The MC, a woman with silver hair and a sparkly dress, tapped the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. It's time to begin our program. Please welcome our lead sponsor and keynote speaker, Mr. Daniel Crawford." The room filled with applause. Daniel walked up the steps to the stage, looking cool and confident, like a guy who's talked to crowds a million times. He shook the MC's hand, adjusted the mic, and smiled out at everyone. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he started. "The Denver Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala has raised over $12 million for kids' reading programs over the past 15 years. That's something we should all be proud of." More clapping. Thomas had gone back to his table, his face still red, Jennifer whispering something to him. "Tonight I want to talk about something personal," Daniel continued. "About family, about the choices we make and the mess that follows." A buzz went through the crowd. This wasn't the normal sponsor speech. 20 years ago, I made a choice that I've regretted ever since. I walked away from someone I cared about because I thought I had better things to do. I didn't know then that she was pregnant with my child. The whispering got louder. I saw heads turning, trying to put it together. 6 months ago, I got a letter from this incredible young woman. She spent 2 years digging into her own past, gathering proof, building her case. She didn't do it for revenge. She did it for the truth, to know where she came from. Daniel looked right at me. That young woman is here tonight, and I'd like to introduce her to you, not as a secret, not as a scandal, but as my daughter. He held out his hand to me. Sophia, would you join me on stage? That walk to the stage felt like it took forever. 400 faces watched me go. 400 pairs of eyes followed my every single step. I could hear people whispering. Crawford's daughter. Who is she? Did he say 18 years? I walked up the stairs and took Daniel's hand. He pulled me over to his side so we were facing the crowd together. This is Sophia Mitchell, he said into the mic, or as I hope she'll let me call her someday, Sophia Crawford, my daughter. The applause started out slow, but then it got louder. Not everyone was clapping. Some were just too stunned. Others were still trying to process it all, but enough people were clapping that the sound filled the room. Sophia spent 18 years in a house that didn't want her, Daniel went on. She was told she was a mistake. She got nothing, while her stepbrother got everything. She had to pay for her own SATs by working at a coffee shop, because the man who was supposed to be her guardian wouldn't give her $200. I glanced over at Thomas's table. His face was white as a ghost. Jennifer had her hand over her mouth. The other guests at their table were leaning away like his disgrace was contagious. Despite all of that, Daniel said, Sophia graduated with a 3.9 GPA. She scored in the 96th percentile on her SATs. She earned a partial scholarship to the University of Colorado Boulder. She did all of this on her own, no help, no support, and with nobody telling her she was worth it. He turned to me, his eyes were glistening. I missed 18 years of your life, Sophia. I can't get those back, but I can promise you this. From today on, you will never be alone again. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight, so I just nodded and squeezed his hand. The clapping was deafening. Daniel motioned to the side of the stage where a woman in a gray suit was waiting. For those of you who might doubt what I've said, I'd like to introduce Victoria Reynolds, a senior partner at Reynolds and Associates. Miss Reynolds has been holding the documents that prove Sophia is my daughter. Victoria stepped forward. She had this presence that just demanded respect. She looked to be in her late 40s with sharp features and the calm look of someone who's won a lot of battles in court. Good evening, she said into the microphone. I have the following documents right here. First, a notarized letter written by Michelle Mitchell Sullivan on August 15th, 2019, confirming that Daniel Crawford is the biological father of her daughter, Sophia. Second, DNA test results from GanTrust Labs dated November 8th, 2023, confirming a 99.97% chance of a paternal match between Mr. Crawford and Ms. Mitchell. She held up a folder, the same one Daniel had shown Thomas a week ago. These documents have been verified and are available for legal review. There's no doubt here. Sophia Mitchell is Daniel Crawford's biological daughter. The room was buzzing. I saw a reporter from the Denver Business Journal scribbling like crazy in a notebook. Phones were out everywhere. People were recording, texting, posting. Thomas's table was dead silent. The other guests had actually scooted their chairs away from him. Nobody wanted to be associated with what was happening. One more thing, Victoria added. I also have financial records that show that Thomas Sullivan, as the trustee for Sophia's inheritance from her late mom, he took $47,000 from her trust fund over a 5-year period. We're starting legal action to get it back Monday morning. Thomas shot up from his chair, knocking his champagne glass over. He didn't say a word. He just walked out. He didn't get far. Thomas made it about 10 steps toward the door before someone yelled, "Running away, Sullivan!" He froze. He turned around. His face was just pure, barely controlled anger. "This is a setup," he yelled, his voice cracking. "Daniel's been trying to ruin me for 20 years. He's using that girl to finish the job." The whole room got really uncomfortable. A few people looked at Daniel, then me, then back at Thomas. "The DNA test is fake," Thomas went on, marching back toward the stage. "The documents are forged. This is all just a lie to humiliate me." Daniel didn't even blink. Gantrust Labs is one of the most respected labs in the country. Their results have been used in thousands of court cases. Are you saying they're part of this conspiracy? I'm saying you paid them off. And the letter from Michelle, your own wife, is that fake too? Thomas's mouth opened, then snapped shut. He didn't have an answer. "You called my daughter a bastard in front of 50 witnesses," Daniel said, his voice getting low and dangerous. "You admitted in front of everyone that you knew she wasn't your real daughter and that you held it against her. You did all that before I said a single word." You could hear people whispering their agreement. "Everything that's happening to you tonight, Thomas, you brought on yourself." Then someone in the crowd shouted, "What about the trust fund money?" Thomas's face went white. That's a private matter. $47,000. Another voice yelled, "From a kid's inheritance. That's just stealing." The crowd was turning on him. I could feel it. The whole room was turning against him, siding with us instead of him. Jennifer popped up at his side, pulling his arm. "Thomas, we need to go. Now." This time he didn't argue. They bolted through a side door, leaving their table completely empty. The Monday after the party, Victoria Reynolds filed a lawsuit in Denver County Court. Case number 2024, CV0892. Plaintiff, Sophia Mitchell. Defendant, Thomas Sullivan. The complaint was simple. He broke his legal duty, stole trust fund money, and failed to manage the money for a minor. We were going after the full $47,000 Thomas took plus 8% interest a year, plus our lawyer's fees. "The evidence against him is rock solid," Victoria told me at our meeting that afternoon. Her office was on the 17th floor of a downtown skyscraper with a view of the mountains. Bank statements, withdrawal records, signed papers, all with Thomas's name on them. "And we have your story about what you actually got." "Nothing. So what happens now?" "Thomas has 30 days to respond. He can settle or he can fight it. But fighting means discovery. And that means we get to look at all of his financial records." She smirked a little. "I don't think he's going to want that." I thought about the email Daniel had shown me, where Thomas asked his lawyer about cutting me out of his will. If an email like that existed, what else was buried in his files? "There's one more thing," Victoria said. "The whole university thing is sorted out. I talked to admissions this morning. They looked into what Thomas said, and it was all a bunch of lies. You're in." I felt so relieved. "Thank you." "Don't thank me, thank yourself. You've got a perfect record even with everything he threw at you." All Thomas's accusations did was make him look small and spiteful. I walked out of Victoria's office feeling better than I have in years. The lawsuit was going to take a while, probably months, but I knew how it would end. Thomas spent 18 years making me feel like I had no power. Not anymore. On April 10th, 3 weeks after we filed the lawsuit, Thomas's lawyer called Victoria. "They want to settle?" Victoria told me on the phone. "They'll pay back the full $47,000 plus $8,500 in interest and our $12,000 legal fees. And they're going to transfer the rest of your mom's trust fund right away." I did the math in my head. That's over $200,000 total. $200,500 to be exact. And they're not fighting us on anything. No digging around, no depositions, no trial. Why? Because Thomas can't handle the heat. That gala was a total train wreck for him at work and in his personal life. His partners at Sullivan Crawford have been avoiding him ever since. A long court fight would just make it worse for him. The settlement was signed on April 15th, exactly 1 month after my 18th birthday. I didn't go to the signing. I didn't need to see his face when he wrote that check. I didn't need an apology from him. And Victoria said he didn't give one anyway. What I needed was to be done with it. And now I was. The money hit my account 3 days later. I just stared at the number on my phone for a long time. $200,500. It wasn't really about the money. It was about someone finally seeing me, finally admitting that what he did to me was wrong. Thomas spent 18 years treating me like I was nothing. Now, he literally paid for it. Daniel took me out to dinner the night the money came in. It was a quiet little Italian place, and you know the kind with white tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. "I want to pay for your college," he said after we ordered. "All of it? Tuition, housing, books, everything." I put my water glass down. "I appreciate that, but no." He looked surprised. "Why not?" "Because I've spent 18 years proving I don't need anybody. I'm not about to start depending on someone now, not even you. Sophia, I'm your father. It's not about depending on me. It's what family does." "I know." I reached over and touched his hand. "And I'm so glad you're in my life, but I have to do this on my own. The trust fund money, my scholarship, that's enough. It's more than enough." Daniel was quiet for a second. I could see him struggling with it. He wanted to provide for me, but he knew I needed to be independent. "Your mother raised you well," he finally said. "She did." "Okay." He squeezed my hand. "But if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, I'm here. No strings attached." "I know." We spent the rest of dinner talking about other stuff. His business, my plans for college, the apartment I was checking out near campus. Just a normal father-daughter talk, or at least what I thought a normal chat with your dad would be like. I didn't need Daniel's money to prove my worth. I'd already been proving that for 18 years every single day. I know a lot of you watching have gone through the same kind of thing. You know, being ignored, not feeling good enough, made to feel like you don't even matter by the people who are supposed to love you most. If this story hits home for you, drop a comment and share this video. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. And hey, don't forget to subscribe so you catch the end. We're almost there. What happened to Thomas next was fast and ugly. It all started the night of the party when the Chamber of Commerce quietly pulled his Developer of the Year nomination. No big announcement, no explanation. Just a quick email to everyone the next morning saying that because of some issues, they weren't giving out the award this year. But that was only the start. On April 10th, the very same day Thomas's lawyer called about a settlement, Sterling Investment Group backed out of a huge project they'd been working on together for 18 months. That deal was worth $12 million. And according to the email Thomas got, which somehow got leaked to the Denver Business Journal, Sterling's CEO wrote, "We can't have our brand tied to people whose personal lives make you question their judgment." The article came out on April 5th with the headline, "Family Scandal Ruins Career of Former Sullivan Crawford Executive." Former. Yeah, because by that point, Thomas was already out. The board at Sullivan Crawford Properties had an emergency meeting on May 1st. I wasn't there, of course, but Daniel knew people on the inside. The vote wasn't even close. It was unanimous. Thomas had to resign right then and there. They gave him a small payout and made him sign a strict NDA. The official story they put out was that he left for personal reasons to spend more time with his family. Nobody bought it. Within 2 months, Thomas Sullivan had lost his award, his biggest deal, and his entire career. Their house in Highlands Ranch was up for sale by June. I guess Jennifer decided she couldn't stand living in a neighborhood where everybody knew their dirty laundry. I wasn't happy to see Thomas fall apart. I didn't feel like I'd won or gotten my revenge. What I felt was something calmer. It was almost like peace. For 18 years, Thomas had all the power over me. He decided where I lived, what I ate, even if I felt welcome in my own home. He made me feel so small, so worthless, like I wasn't even there. But now everyone could see the real him, and I was finally free. Jennifer and Brandon. They were just collateral damage from Thomas's life blowing up. I didn't plan for that to happen, but I can't lie and say I didn't see it coming. Jennifer basically vanished from social media a week after the party. Her Instagram, the one with all the perfect family pictures. First it went private, and then it was just gone. I heard from people we both know that she stopped going to her book club, her tennis lessons, all her charity meetings. And I didn't feel sorry for her. She watched Thomas treat me like trash for 6 years and never said a word. Her silence made her just as bad. But Brandon was different. He was only 14, old enough to know what happened, but too young for me to blame him completely. He'd spent his whole life believing the story Thomas told him, that I was the problem, the outsider who ruined their perfect family. 3 months after the gala, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Sophia, it's Brandon. I got your number from Mom's phone. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad things were for you. I should have paid attention. I should have said something. I just stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to text back right away to tell him it was okay and that we could try to fix things. But another part of me, the part that was ignored for 18 years, needed more time. I typed back, "Thanks for reaching out. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I appreciate you saying this." He replied, "I understand. Whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready?" I saved his number but didn't add him to my contacts. Maybe one day, but not today. That August, I moved to Boulder. My apartment was small, just a 1-bedroom near campus, but you could see the flat irons from my kitchen window. I filled it with stuff I found at thrift stores and on Facebook Marketplace. I had a blue couch, a wooden desk, and a bed frame that squeaked whenever I rolled over. It was perfect. The trust fund money just sat in a savings account, making a little bit of interest. I used it for tuition and rent budgeting, so it would last all 4 years. My scholarship covered the rest. I didn't touch a single dime of Daniel's money. I didn't need to. Classes started the last week of August. I was a business major with a minor in communications. My professors were tough, and the classes were hard, but I was doing great in a way I never did in high school. For the first time in my life, I was around people who didn't know anything about my past. They just judged me for who I was right there. I got a part-time job at a small real estate office downtown. It wasn't Daniel's company or anything connected to Thomas. It was just a local place that needed someone to answer phones and file papers. The pay wasn't much, but the experience was worth it. Daniel visited once a month, always on a Sunday. We'd get brunch at a cafe on Pearl Street, and we'd talk about my classes and work. We were slowly getting to know each other. He never pushed. He never tried to buy my love. He just showed up over and over like a dad is supposed to. By October, I'd made friends. By November, I'd started dating a guy from my economics class named Jake. He was from Colorado, had an easy laugh, and knew nothing about my messed up past. I didn't tell him about Thomas or the gala or the lawsuit. Not yet. That was my old life, and I was building a new one. For the first time in 18 years, I woke up every morning without that awful feeling in my stomach. I actually felt hopeful. Then 6 months after the gala, Thomas emailed me. I almost deleted it without reading it. Seeing his name pop up in my inbox felt like a violation, a reminder of everything I was trying to escape. But I was too curious. It said, "Sophia, I know I have no right to contact you, but I've had time to think about what happened. And I realize I owe you an explanation, maybe even an apology. I'd like to talk if you're willing." Thomas? That's it. No sincerely, no nothing. He didn't even say what he was sorry for. Just some vague offer to talk. Like one email could erase 18 years of cruelty. I didn't write him back. So instead I called Victoria Reynolds. I told her, I want to send him a message through your office. Something official. Something final. She got it right away. The letter went out 3 days later on Reynolds and Associates letterhead. "Mr. Sullivan, Miss Mitchell received your letter from September 22nd. She asked me to send you this response. You had 18 years to treat me with basic decency. You chose not to. You knew the truth about who my real father was and used it as an excuse to neglect and abuse me. You stole from my inheritance. You tried to sabotage my education and my future. I'm not interested in your excuses or your apologies. I don't want any more contact with you. This isn't revenge. It's a boundary. Please don't try to reach me again. Sophia Mitchell. Thomas never wrote back. I don't know if he was mad hurt or just relieved. I didn't care. Some people deserve second chances. Thomas just wasn't one of them. Forgiveness doesn't mean you let someone walk back into your life to hurt you again. Sometimes forgiveness just means letting go and walking away. Building a relationship with Daniel was like learning a whole new language. We had the basics. We shared DNA, we looked alike, and we both wanted to connect. But getting fluent was going to take years. Our monthly brunches became our thing. He'd drive down from Denver on Sunday mornings, always getting there at exactly 10 a.m. We'd order the same stuff, avocado toast for me, eggs Benedict for him, and just talk about everything and nothing. Some days were easy. We'd talk about his newest business deal or my upcoming exams, laughing at dumb jokes and finding things we had in common. He loved jazz. So did I. He hated cilantro, me too. Little things, but they added up. Other days were harder. There were silences that went on for way too long. Questions that didn't have any good answers. How do you sum up 18 years of not being there? How do you grieve for a relationship that never even happened? I'm not trying to replace the time we lost, Daniel told me once, stirring his coffee. I know that's impossible. I just want to be here for whatever's next. That's enough, I said, and I meant it. On my 19th birthday, Daniel drove to Boulder with a small cake and a card. No crazy gifts, no big dramatic gestures. Just the two of us in my tiny apartment, eating chocolate cake and watching the sunset paint the Flatirons pink and gold. Happy birthday, Sophia, he said. Thanks, Dad. It was the first time I'd ever called him that. His eyes got a little teary, but he didn't make a big deal about it. Neither did I. Some things don't need words. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd never found that letter. If I'd never reached out to Daniel. If I just took Thomas's $50 and vanished into the world, just another forgotten kid from a broken home. But I did find the letter. I did reach out. And everything changed. Here's what I learned from 18 years of being invisible. First, your worth isn't decided by how other people treat you. Thomas saw me as a mistake, a burden, a reminder that his wife cheated. But his version of me was never my reality. I was always more than what he saw. Second, boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary. Cutting Thomas out of my life wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. I don't owe anyone my peace of mind. Third, family is more than just blood. It's about the people who actually show up for you, who choose you, and love you no matter what. Yeah, Daniel and I share DNA, but what makes him my dad is that he's there for me every single day. I'm a sophomore now, studying business, and I dream about starting my own real estate company someday. Not to go up against Thomas or Daniel, but just to prove to myself that I can build something from scratch, because that's what I've always had to do. If you're watching this and you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or just plain invisible, I see you. Your story's not over. The people who wrote you off don't get to write your ending. You do. Thanks for sticking around for my whole story. Now I want to ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have answered that email from Thomas? Comment yes if you would have given him a chance, or no if you think I made the right call. And please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next story. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.